Hey YouTube and the Samba. Again, a little video from Heiko. I'm still working on my bus. I just finished up troubleshooting a hiccup phenomenon or a bucking of my bus while driving above 3000 RPM, usually under load uphill. And I found that it was the temperature sensor number 2, which is a cylinder head temperature sensor for the ECU. It's located near the cylinder 3 spark plug, and that thing was just loose. So it's like a one-wire sensor. It's grounded through the engine block, and that connection was bad because it was loose. Fixed that and parked my bus in the garage right behind me, and then suddenly realized it's dripping fuel. And then I did a little bit of some research and found that the stock square little plastic fuel filter, which is a pre-fuel pump filter, had created a leak, and it's right at the seam. So I will show you what I had and what I'm going to be switching to, and then you guys can make up your mind if that's a good idea or not. Alright guys, I'm going to switch cameras around, and then we'll show you what fuel filter I used to use and what I'm going to be using from now on. Alright guys, we're on the workbench. This is going to be my new setup. Let me show you what my old setup is. I have a 77 VW bus, which is the fuel injected 2 liter. And under a fuel injected 2 liter, you would find a fuel filter like this. Here's the line coming 7mm fuel hose coming from the fuel tank. And here's a 11 or 12mm fuel hose going to the fuel pump. So right here would be the fuel pump mounted along the frame rail on the left side of the vehicle near the firewall to the engine compartment. So thin fuel line coming from the tank, big fuel line, just a stubby piece going to the fuel pump. And this here is the standard fuel filter. Here in this case, it's actually one of my preferred brands, a Wix filter 33274. But it doesn't matter what brand you buy, they all kind of look the same. MP makes one that looks similar to this. You can buy anywhere, at AutoZone, at O'Reilly's, and you will get a filter that looks like this. This particular one says made in Taiwan, and somewhere on here it also, oh yeah, here's another stamping. It says Wix on it. So I bet all those filters are probably coming out of the same factory. This filter is really terrible. My bus fortunately was sitting in the garage, so it wasn't running. The exhaust pipes and the heater boxes were not hot. The filter that currently is still installed cracked right along the seam here and started dripping on the floor. I walked into my garage and was like, man, it smells like gasoline in here. And then I started looking around and found a puddle of gasoline under my car coming out of this filter. So this is a pre-filter, so the flow direction is from tank through filter into the fuel pump. I couldn't find the filter rating, the micron filter rating of this filter, but I know what those look like on the inside because I have cut one open once just to check if it's dirty. It's just a pleated cellulose kind of a paper filter in there. And same deal with this puppy here, sitting here. It's a Napa Gold 3032. Has the same filter material in there, so I didn't want to change the type of filter. I just wanted to get away from the plastic. The filter for the fuel injected buses, I think it's 77 through 79, and then they continued using it in the Vanagons for a few years until they completely went away with this filter. Especially in the Vanagons, they had a lot of problems with pump cavitation. The two-wheel drive version of the Vanagon has a very shallow tank, and the tank is really low in the vehicle, almost at the same level as the fuel pump, so there's not much gravity head pressure. And so the pump sucking here on this side, so the filter is on the suction side of the pump, would eventually not get enough fuel, and then the pump would start cavitating and making noises. And if you don't pay attention to that, it would eventually damage the pump. The bay windows don't have that problem. The tank sits higher above the fuel pump. Usually the feeding is okay. Those filters eventually clog up, and then you might hear some cavitation going on, and that's the signal that you need to replace the filter. I just don't like the fact that it's made out of plastic, and I cannot find an alternative filter that has a 7mm and a 12mm, or let's call it 5/16, and a 1/2 inch on the other side. Wasn't able to find one, but I wanted to go to a metal housing filter because I don't like the leakage stuff going on under my vehicle, because I really like my bus, you know. I don't want it to burn up on the side of the road one day. So same deal here, 5/16 end on this end, has a 5/16 end here on this side as well. Flow direction is also indicated with a tiny little pointing thingy right there. Just like on this sucker, there you see it. So same deal, same size. I've seen pictures of those cut open. The pleated filter looks exactly the same. This is, yeah, like I said, I don't know the microns here. I know this is a 20 micron filter. You know, it's going to be similar. Then here, in this case, you might, oh, he's using those chintzy hose clamps. I actually like those because they keep their tension. If you put a regular, here, let's grab one real quick. One of those here. This is the fuel injection type style fuel hose clamp. You tighten them down, they stay in their position. And then maybe, because of temperature under the vehicle, the rubber shrinks and suddenly it gets loose. If you're not constantly checking your hose clamps and tightening them up, you will lose tension and maybe develop a leak. This is on the suction side, so there is really absolutely no pressure, maybe what, a PSI or two. These are really nice because you have to use a plier, open them up, and then they crank down on the rubber just the right amount to always still stay sealed. And then it also makes it easier to replace the filter on the side of the road because you only need a pair of pliers. So I will do the same thing here on the factory 7mm fuel hose. Of course, I will check if the spring-loaded little hose clamp will also crank down on the 7mm fuel line, because it's a little different. This here is a 5/16 fuel hose, American made, whatever brand, and mine originally is a 7mm, a German made fuel hose. And then I used a 5/16 barb, 1/4 inch male MIP male NPT. It's National Plumber's Thread. What is male something thread? So it's a tapered 1/4 inch thread on here, a coupler that's 1/4 inch and 1/4 inch, and then on the other end we have a barb that's a 1/2 inch barb, because if you look at my original filter here, that's exactly the same size. It's 1/2 inch on one side and 5/16 on the other. So I pretty much came up with this solution. It's a little longer, but I do have enough space between my fuel pump here on this end, and I actually have steel fuel line running under my bus that became standard under the 78 and 79, I believe. I replicated that with stainless steel brake line, and yeah, so I have less rubber hose. I'm always afraid of leakages and stuff. There are just as many connection points, but it's just less rubber that can rub through or get brittle, or, you know, it's a little bit more controllable. And if I have to replace fuel line, I really only have to replace small pieces like this length in each connection point. Okay guys, this is, like I said, Napa Gold, that one. and the original was this one, which I will not use anymore. I will go with those. If I have enough space where I'm mounting this, I will even try out the big Bosch filter that the Vanagon uses, because that one can also be mounted either as a pre-filter or as a post-filter after the pump. But the way the pump is mounted under the bay window, there's just not enough space to mount it behind or after the pump. I might modify that all a little bit and then maybe able to get one of those little puppies as a pre-filter and then the big Vanagon filter as a post-filter, but we'll see. For now, I'm going to install this. I'm going to turn you guys off and then meet you down under my bus. Hey, quick little add-on. I wanted to share with you guys what kind of thread sealant I used. I used thread sealant that I just bought in the plumbing section at Home Depot. It's Rector Seal number 5. And no, some people would say, oh no, you have to go to AutoZone or Napa and buy specifically automotive thread sealant. And I say, not true. I went into the Rector Seal webpage, and they have a pipe thread sealant application chart. And because, you know, in industry, they also do stuff with gasoline and oil and whatnot. There's gasoline, unleaded, 10% alcohol, that would be ethanol, and normal gasoline, and the little check marks here. And if you go up here, there is Rector Seal number 5. Rector Seal number 5. So that's what I use. It's for an industrial gasoline application, like at a refinery. They can use that stuff, so I think it's going to be just fine under my bus. Crank those two together. I bet I would have gotten it even sealed without any sealant in there. But, and oh yeah, what I also liked is the ID of those barbs here, the smaller one, is just as big as, if not even bigger than the ID of the original filter. So I'm not losing any diameter here. The plastic is usually a little bit more thick wall than metal. So my little 5/16 barb actually has a bigger opening inside of it than the original filter. So yeah, I think we're gonna get this going here. All right, we'll see you under the bus.